Hello my dear friends, once again I welcome you back to my YouTube channel Modern English with Khandu Dayal. Dear friends, if you are new to this channel, please like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel to get more videos. So friends, so far we had seen the history of novel and the elements of novel. In this video we are going to learn more about the types of novel. Right, so let's start with the types of novel. To begin with, the types of novel. The first types of novel is realistic novel. The realistic novel is a fiction that gives the effect of realism. Sometimes this is also called a novel of manner. The very first sentence reveals what does that mean by a realistic novel. The realistic novel is the kind of fictions which gives an effect of realism, which gives an effect of truth. So that is what realistic novel, and it is also known as a novel of manner. It can be characterized by its complex characters with mixed motives that are rooted in the social class. The characters in the realistic novel interact with other characters and undergo plausible and everyday experiences. Right, what happens? The character in realistic novel interact with the other characters as well, and they share everyday experiences, right, and hence they undergo a plausible interaction, means whatever happens in day-to-day life. So that is how a realistic novel is all about. The second types of novel is Picaresque Novel. The word Picaresque is originated from the Spanish word Picaro, which means a rogue. A Picaresque novel narrates the adventures of the protagonist, who is an eccentric or disreputable person in an episodic form. Now this novel talks about a kind of adventures of protagonist, right, who is a disreputable person, who is depicted, who is shown as a disreputable person in an episodic form. A kind of episodes are there, and throughout which the protagonist and his behavior, his adventurous behavior, and a kind of disreputable person, the protagonist is shown here in these types of novel. The third types of novel is historical novel. A historical novel is a novel set in a period earlier than that of the writing. Now, whatever has happened in the past, right? Whatever incidents took place in the past or maybe in a recent past, so that is what being written in the novel form is known as historical novel, right? Moving on to the next types, epistolary novel. The word epistolary derives from a Latin word epistola, which means a letter. The epistolary novel is that in which the writer presents the narrative through a series of correspondence or other documents. Although letters are the most common basis for epistolary novel, diary entries are also a popular form of this type. Now, when we talk about epistolary novel, it means that the writer has put forth the narratives with the help of correspondence, right? Now, what has used in the correspondence? A letter, a series of correspondence, right? And it could be diary entries as well. So it is an important form of epistolary novel. So what does that mean? So kind of letters and correspondence. So that is what this novel talks about. The next is Gothic novel. The novel that include terror, mystery, horror, thriller, supernatural doom, death or decay or haunted buildings are called the Gothic novels. As we all know that there are movies as well based on Gothic novels. As we all know that there are many horror movies and horror pictures wherein the Gothic novels are shown. Right. So terror is there, mystery is there, horror, thriller, supernatural things like a ghost and a beast. See, that is what supernatural, a god. So all these things are supernatural. So all those things are shown in a Gothic novel. Next type of novel is autobiographical novel. The autobiographical novel is the novel based on the life of the author. However, the author changes the places and names of characters, or even may change or avoid certain details of his lives. It may or may not be in the first person narration. Now, as we all know that, what is autobiographical novel? So it is a novel in which the life of author is shown or depicted. So it may be or may not be in a first person narration. Right. So the first novel, that is To Serve with to Love, is an autobiographical novel, right, which is based on the real life of E.R. Braithwaite. The next types of novel is allegorical novel. An allegory is a story that bears more than one level of meaning. So this is such a type of novel wherein the two meanings are given, that is surface meaning and the hidden meaning. Right. The surface meaning of such novel is different from the symbolic meaning of it. Obviously, there are two meanings, the surface meaning and the implied meaning or the hidden meaning of the novel. The symbolic meaning of an allegory may be political, religious, historical, or philosophical. So when we talk about implied meaning or a symbolic meaning, it consists of political, religious, historical, or philosophical. That is what allegory or allegorical novel talks about. The next type is Utopian novel. The Utopia is an imaginary community or society possessing the ideal qualities. Right. When we think about or when we talk about the word Utopia, it is a kind of community, it is a kind of imaginary community or society which has ideal qualities. And it is a common literary theme, especially in science fictions or speculative fictions. So how it is? It is a kind of common literary theme, especially in the field or in the stream that is science or speculative fictions. That is what the Utopian novel is. The next is stream of consciousness novel. The stream of consciousness is a phrase coined by William James in his treatise Principles of Psychology in the year 1890. Now what does that mean, a stream of consciousness, and how it is? So the writer William James has coined these concepts. So what does that mean? It means the flow of the thoughts. Now, stream of consciousness means the flow of thoughts. Incidents in the plot are in the sequence of their occurrence. The novelist narrates them as they enter the minds of the characters. Means what? Means the moment and the thought enters in the minds of narrators or the characters, so it is written down. That is what the stream of consciousness, right? The novelist narrates them as they enter in the minds of the characters. That is what the stream of consciousness is all about. Moving on to the next types, that is psychological novel. Now what does that mean? Psychological novel is the work of fiction that treats the internal life of the protagonist or even the other characters as much as the external factors. Psychological novel which deals with the internal life of the protagonist, right? So it is a kind of fiction that treats the internal life of the protagonist or even the other characters as much as the external factors, right? Means the novel which is written on the internal factors of the protagonist of the hero of particular novel is known as psychological novel. Moving on to the next types, that is Bildungsroman Novel. The German word Bildungsroman indicates growth. Now this is very specific. The word Bildungsroman means what? The growth. The fictional biography or autobiography is concerned with the growth of the protagonist's mind, spirit and characters from their childhood to adulthood. Now this particular novel talks about the growth. Now Whose growth? The growth of the protagonist's mind. Right? How does the minds of protagonist grows? The spirit, the moral characters, and his childhood to adulthood. Right? How all those things grows from the childhood of the protagonist up to the adulthood or moral characters. So that is what the Bildungsroman novel talks about. In the first half of the 20th century, a cult of pulp magazines became popular, in which fantastic fictions for the general entertainment of the masses was printed on the cheap pulp paper. The pulp fiction era provided a building ground for the detective novels and science fictions. Now, when we talk about 20th century, so in this era, a cult of a pulp magazines became popular, right? In which many fantastic fictions and general entertainment and many things were printed on a cheap pulp paper. And the pulp fictions era provided the building ground for detective novels, and this is the same era which provided many opportunities for the detective novels and the science fiction novels. Science fiction is a genre of speculative fiction dealing with imaginative concepts such as futuristic setting, futuristic science and technology, space travel, time travel, parallel universe and extraterrestrial life. Now, all those things the science fiction consists of. Science fiction often explores the potential consequences of scientific and other innovations. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, 1823, is considered the first novel based on science and technology. The genre flourished in the second half of the 19th century. So when you talk about science fiction, the Frankenstein, now this is the novel, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, is considered to be the first novel which is based on the science and technology. Detective fiction is a subgenre of crime fiction and mystery fiction in which an investigator or a detective, either professional or amateur, investigates a crime, often a murder. And when you talk about detective fiction, it is a kind of subgenre of crime fiction wherein the mystery fictions in which an investigator or detective he himself investigates the crime or whatever is done in the novel, or a kind of murder. So that is what the types of novel, and I hope that students you would have understood the types of novel. I hope, dear friends, you would have understood the topic types of novel. If you have understood the types of novel, please like, share, comments and subscribe my YouTube channel Modern English. Thank you so much.